Hey fam, it's late night. It's almost 1 a.m. here on the East Coast in North Carolina. But I wanted to get this video done, and I want to continue our conversation and to continue the discussion in the series that we're having about Black economic empowerment. Because at this point, I think all foundational Black Americans should know. If they don't know, please understand that what we need to be doing now is we need to be building our economics. We need to be getting our money up. While we still fight for reparations, while we still fight for tangibles, while we still say no tangibles, no vote, if you're not coming with a specific Black agenda, if you're not coming offering foundational Black Americans specific tangibles, we're not voting. Period. We're not voting. We're not doing this down ballot mess. We're just not voting. We're boycotting that whole process. We're staying out of that process. That process has nothing to do with us. Nobody has included us in their platform. Nobody has included us in any of their policies or any of their plans. Nobody has anything specific to offer us. No specific tangibles. So we're staying out of it. We're staying out of that. You're ignoring us. You're acting like we're not a part of the process. So we're not going to be a part of the process. It's just that simple. So yes, we are still um, on our square as far as tangibles and reparations are concerned, as far as voting, as far as these Democrats and these Republicans are concerned. In the last video, I just put up about forgive them. At the latter part of the video, I show that there's really no difference whatsoever between the Democrats and the Republicans as far as their actions, as far as their policies, as far as the stunts that they pull, as far as the way they politic and the way they move. There's really not a whole lot of difference. Um, that the example that I use is the perfect example. I showed with receipts where back in 1998 Democratic President Bill Clinton made pretty much the exact same move that Republican President Donald Trump is making now as far as the airstrike on the Iranian general. Almost the exact same move at almost the exact same time under almost the exact same circumstances. So, two entirely different candidates, two entirely different presidents, two entirely different parties, but I mean, 20 years apart, 21 years apart, 22 years, somewhere along in there, and they made almost the exact same move. So we just don't have time for it. We don't have time to play the little political games. We don't have time for the political theater. We don't have time to worry about whether or not we're going to end up going to war with Iran or whatever the case may be. Just like we didn't have time to be distracted by this whole impeachment phony baloney, because it's turning out to be nothing but a bunch of bull. We just don't have time for it. The only thing that we need to be concentrating on is getting up our money and getting up our economics, figuring out how to practice group economics, figuring out how to come together, to work together, to support each other, to open these businesses, support these businesses, help these businesses grow so that our communities can grow, so that our economic base can grow. And then maybe, just maybe, we'll have a foot to stand on when it comes time to become a part of the political process again. Because right now, with our economic base being what it is, and our economy in the Black community being what it is, we don't stand a chance in the political arena anyway. So we need to sit it out for a while, and certainly need to sit it out until somebody is offering us some tangibles. And we need to get financially literate. We need to get educated when it comes to money, when it comes to investing, when it comes to building economics, when it comes to opening and building businesses. We need to get financially literate. We need to understand how to spend money, where to spend money, when to spend money, when to hold money, what to invest in and what not to invest in, what's a real investment, what's not a real investment. We need to understand all of that stuff. We need to understand all of that stuff in order to be prepared, in order to be ready when the tangibles and the reparations do start coming in. So that's the reason why I decided to do, my part as far as that is concerned. And by no means, I ain't even trying to claim that I'm nowhere near any kind of expert, because I have not studied anything in economics. But some things are just plain old common sense, and some things are common sense based on history. You don't need a degree, you don't need a PhD in economics to study history and to study the pathology and to see how we keep doing this same thing over and over and over again, and it keeps on getting us in the same place, which is nowhere. So if you've been traveling the same road for hundreds of years and that road has gotten you nowhere, then at what point do you realize that maybe, just maybe, you need to get off that road, you need to get off that path, and you need to start traveling another road? You need to start taking another path. See, some of it is just common sense. See, all of these charts and all of this so-called data and all of that kind of stuff, if it doesn't make, I've heard it said a million times before, and it's been a while since I heard anybody say it, but Jason Black said it the other day in a show that he did on economics, and it will be linked in the description box so that you can go back to that. But just like he said, folks, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So at this point, if what we do is not making dollars, if what we do is not geared towards building our economics and not towards getting our money up and not towards growing our economic base, if what we're doing at this point is not making dollars, then it's not making sense for us. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the history that has gotten us here. Is that when we were making dollars and we were building our own communities and our own economics and our own businesses, and we had our own business structure and our own economic structure and all of that, and we were making dollars and it was making sense, we decided that we were going to follow people that weren't making sense, and we were going to put all of that to the side, and we were going to leave all that behind, and we were going to integrate, which didn't make sense. Now, maybe to some people back then that didn't understand, maybe to some people back then that thought that it was going to lead to something else, that maybe to some of the people back then that honestly believed that it was going to lead to some form of equality, or it was going to lead to some form of social equality, or some form of economic equality, or whatever the case may be. Maybe to some of them it made sense. But to the people who were really leading the show, and they knew what they were doing, they had sold out to the dominant society. They had sold out to the narrative and the agenda that the dominant society wanted to push. They knew exactly where they were taking us. They knew exactly what path they were leading us down. And they knew it was not going to lead us to any economic freedom, any social freedom. It wasn't going to lead us to any freedom at all. And it didn't. We are just as enslaved now as we were in 1864. 1764, 1664. We are just as enslaved now. We just don't have physical chains and physical bonds that are holding us. Now we have economic chains and economic bonds that are holding us. Now, instead of plantations, we have student debt. We have ghettos. We have urban cities that look like war zones, that look like places that have been bombed with nuclear bombs. We have the prison industrial complex. We have mass incarceration. See, those are the chains that we have now. Those are the forms of slavery that we have now. So we're just as enslaved now as we've ever been. So integration certainly did not lead us to any kind of freedom whatsoever. And the sooner we all realize that, the sooner we all acknowledge that and accept that and realize that now the responsibility is on us. Okay, we understand that we have a problem. We understand that we are at economics death's door. We are on economic life support. Now that we realize that and we know that, now it's time for us to do something about it. You know, and all of this foolishness that we got other people out spouting, talking about, it's not going, you can't help yourself. It's not going to do any good to be entrepreneurs. It's not going to do any good to own businesses. It's not going to do any good to support black businesses. It's not going to do any good to bank black. It's not going to do any good to do this and to practice group economics and do that. All of those folks that are out there spouting that, and telling us that basically we're supposed to depend on the same government that we've been dependent on. But it's the same government that has been enslaving us for the last 400 plus years. They just keep going from one form of slavery to the next, from one form of slavery to the next. We deal with more mental slavery now as a result of the actual physical slavery. We deal with more mental slavery. We've got to break the bonds of mental slavery. But for those of us who are woke, those of us who see the handwriting on the wall and know that we don't have much time, we've got to mobilize. We've got to mobilize. We've got to organize. We got to get this thing together, and we got to get it together quick. So that's the reason why I'm doing my part. That's the reason why I'm doing my part online and I'm doing my part offline. I own a couple of businesses. I own a publishing company. I own a small graphics design company. And in 2000 and here in the beginning of 2020, I'm going to revamp all of that. I'm going to redo all of that so that it can be the best that it can possibly be. I own a magazine, and I want to reformat that magazine and turn it into something that's all about Black empowerment. So I'm doing my part online and offline. And we all need to be doing our part. Everybody has a part to play. Everybody can't play the same part. It's not everybody's responsibility to play the same part. But we all have to find our niche. We all have to find what we can do and do that. And do that to the very, very best of our ability. So with having said all of that, let's get into what I want to talk about today. And the card or the link to the last video that I did on this economics, where we talked about the pathology and the psychology, mentally, how we got here, as far as the factors of slavery and how Black people were treated financially as far as slavery was concerned, and doing Reconstruction and all of that, and the banks losing Black folks money and Black folks not trusting, banks and all of that, and because of this distrust and because they had lost so much money, they got this mentality of spend, 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 we got to spend it all before it's gone and all of that. That's all of that was discussed in the last video. And like I said, the link to that video will be up here in the cards. But I want to move on because in that video, I said that I wanted to talk about crowdfunding. But we didn't get a chance to talk about crowdfunding in that video. So that's what I want to start this one off with. I want to start this one off with giving a definition of crowdfunding, talking about crowdfunding as far as group economics is concerned, and as far as building our economic base is concerned. And then I want to talk about crowdfunding or something that's like it, that's international, that comes from other countries. Okay, so first let's go into the definition of crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, this is the noun. The practice of funding a project or venture by raising many small amounts of money from a large number of people, typically via the internet. Again, crowdfunding, the practice of funding a project or venture. Usually when they say venture, they're talking about some kind of business venture. By raising many small amounts of money from a large number of people, from a large group of people, typically via the internet. And some prime examples of crowdfunding is, of course, people know that Tariq does a lot of crowdfunding as far as his documentaries are concerned. He did crowdfunding for the FBA conferences coming up this year. Jason Black has done some crowdfunding for a couple of his documentaries. If I'm not mistaken, Spike Lee did some crowdfunding for the Malcolm X movie. He went to some individuals and got some money and did some crowdfunding from some individuals to get that production off the way. A lot of these musicians, and that's what it says here on the definition. Musicians, filmmakers, and artists have successfully raised funds and fostered awareness through crowdfunding. These musicians getting folks, to do crowdfunding, and that's how they produce their albums, and that's how they get their albums out, and that's how a lot of these filmmakers get their films out, and all of that. So crowdfunding is real big in the United States now, and it has been for the last maybe 5-10 years. Crowdfunding has really grown, and it has really taken a hold in the United States. And another word for crowdfunding is group economics. Group economics is another word for crowdfunding. Again, it's the practice of raising small amounts of money from a large group of people. So you may have 1,000 people doing $10, $15, $20. So you're raising a small amount, it's small amounts of money, but because the group of people is so large, it turns out to be, a large amount of money. And you're raising this money to fund somebody's project, whether it be a film, whether it be an album, or whether it be some kind of event or whatever, or a venture, whether it be somebody going into business or whatever the case may be, some kind of business venture or whatever. That's what you're raising this money for. So it's a group of people pooling their money and their resources together to get something done. That's group economics. Just call it crowdfunding, but it's group economics. Now, all of these people that are a part of this group may not be people from the same community, but these people support whoever it is that that needs this project funded, or whoever it is that's putting out this video or this album or this film or whatever. This group of people supports them and wants to see this thing happen, so they're willing to chip in their money with the rest of the group so that this group can pool all their resources together and make this thing happen. That's group economics. And you would be surprised how many major people, how many people that already have money use crowdfunding to get things done. Because let's be real, most wealthy people don't fund their own projects. They don't fund their own business ventures. They don't use their own money. And see, crowdfunding is a way that you can avoid all the red tape and all of that of going through banks and trying to raise capital and all of this kind of stuff. You may not have whatever is necessary, or you may not meet all the requirements to get a loan or whatever the case may be. So practicing crowdfunding, group economics is a way around all of that. So understand that that's all that crowdfunding is. Group economics. A group practicing economics. A group dealing with money. A group pooling their resources together to get something done, to get something taken care of. A group doing business. That's all it is. Okay, so now that you understand what crowdfunding is, and you have the definition of crowdfunding, and you understand how crowdfunding is used, and you understand that crowdfunding is real, and it's a big thing, and it's used by some major heavy hitting folks, then let's move on to something else that's similar to crowdfunding, but it's a whole lot older than crowdfunding. Okay, now I want to move on to a SUSU or SUSU. It's spelled either SUSU or or SOU hyphen SOU. SUSU. Also known as a merry-go-round. Okay? A SUSU is a form of rotating savings and credit association, a type of informal savings club arrangement between a small group of people who take turns by throwing hand, as the partners call it. The name is used in Africa, especially West Africa and the Caribbean. The basic principle is that each member of the group makes a standard contribution to a common fund once per time period. Then each period, the total contributions are dispersed to a single member of the group. The recipient changes each period in a rotating fashion such that all the members of the group are eventually recipients. So basically what they're saying is you get a small group of people, and these people throw hands. That's what the partners in the SUSU call it, throwing hands. And throwing hands simply means that each person puts in or throws in whatever that contribution, whatever the group has established that the contribution is for that time period. And they do it each time period. Now, it may be once a year, it may be once a week, it may be once a month, it may be once every 6 months or whenever, but it's a set time period for the contribution. Each member of the group does the same amount of contribution, right? At the end of that period, when they say, okay, this SUSU is done, then whatever money was collected is given to a single member of the group for them to go out and use that money for whatever purpose the SUSU had already said that the money would be used for. Right? And the recipient changes with each time period. So that eventually, that's the reason why they call it a merry-go-round, because it goes around to everybody. Eventually, every member of the SUSU, every member of the group will become a recipient of the funds. Sounds to me a lot like what? Group economics. You got a group, a specific group, that are coming together to pool their resources and put their resources together. And then once that time period is over, whatever time period they have established to have this particular SUSU going on, once that time period is over and the funds have been raised, then they take those funds, they give it to one particular member of the group, and that person goes out and does whatever it is that the SUSU was created for them to do in the first place. Whether it's by land, whether it's by property, whether it's to start a business or whatever. Sounds a lot like crowdfunding and group economics, huh? Okay, let's finish reading. A member who receives a distribution early on effectively receives a loan. So that's what they call it, a loan. They collect a larger sum of money early and repay as they make contributions going forward. So each time they make a contribution is their way of paying back the loan. A member who receives a distribution toward the end of a rotation has effectively been saving their contributions leading up to the dispersal. So if you get your money at the very end of the SUSU, then it's almost equivalent to every contribution that you have made was like you were saving money. You were setting this money aside. And now at the end of the SUSU, you get the pot, so to speak. You get the pot. Traditionally, the arrangement is conducted in cash and without any interest charged. The organizer of the SUSU may be compensated for their efforts as a courtesy. So that's something that's optional. That's not necessarily a requirement. Since a SUSU is not a written or legal contract, it relies on personal trust to discourage malfeasance. For this reason, it is more likely that the participants are members of the same community and know each other. That's key. Members of the same community and know each other, because there has to be a certain amount of trust there. Okay? Around the world, the concept of a SUSU is used throughout the world and has over 200 different names that vary from country to country. The funds are generally gathered with a set amount contributed from family or friends each week. You know, some people may do it by week. Some people may do it twice a month, once a month, every 6 months, once a year, or whatever the case may be. An estimated 3/4 of Caribbean immigrants in New York participated in SUSUs during the 1980s. The savings clubs are mainly used in other countries as an alternative means of accessing capital when traditional lending is not readily available, just like crowdfunding. You know, for whatever reason, you can't go to the bank and get a loan, or it's too much red tape, or your credit report ain't right, or whatever, and you can't go, get access to capital the traditional way. So SUSUs, group economics, crowdfunding, those are ways around getting access to capital the traditional way. As cultures migrated to the United States, they brought the savings tradition with them. Not surprisingly, the underbanked will turn to the model to escape the same lack of access to capital. And there is no group of people in America as underbanked and with less access to capital than foundational Black Americans. So it would seem that since we are underbanked and since we have such a hard time getting access to capital, we have such a hard time getting access to traditional lending, it would seem to me that we of all people would be practicing stuff like this. SUSUs, crowdfunding, group economics. So that we don't have to confront that hurdle of trying to get access to capital to fund our projects and to fund our business ventures and things of that nature. Considering that we are the most underbanked, considering that we are the people, we are the group with the least access to capital or getting capital the traditional way. It seems like we would be all for, SUSUs and crowdfunding and group economics, because basically that's all they are. That's all a SUSU is, and that's all crowdfunding is. It's practicing group economics. A group of people coming together, pooling their resources, bringing their money together to get something done, to get something specific done. And it seemed like we, of all people, would be practicing it more than anybody else, especially in the United States. Because we don't have access to things like other groups. We don't have access to traditional lending. We don't have access to ready capital. We don't have that kind of access. At least most of us don't. But it's funny how we practice it. Foundational Black Americans, as a group, as a collective, as a whole, we practice it less than anybody else in the country. The Asians do it all the time. The Middle Easterners do it all the time. White Americans in the dominant society do it all the time. Hispanics do it all the time. We see here that immigrants do it. Black immigrants do it. An estimated 3/4 of Caribbean immigrants in New York participated in SUSUs during the 1980s. So it seems like to me, foundational Black Americans are the only group that is not widely using these practices. Why? Because obviously they work. Gotta work. Tariq Nasheed has 6 documentaries out there. And he's working on the 7th one. Yeah, it's 6. 5 hidden colors. 5 in the hidden color series. 1804, which makes 6. And he's working on buck breaking. So obviously it works. Jason Black has what, 3, 4 hard-hitting documentaries? Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing American Style, 7 a.m., Race Wars. They're out there on Amazon. They can be bought every day. So evidently it works. Malcolm X was one of the best movies that's ever been made. Spike Lee used crowdfunding, group economics. I think Nipsey Hussle may have used some group economics for his album, The Victory Lap. There are other musicians that have used crowdfunding, which is again another form of group economics. Crowdfunding for their musical projects and albums and things of that nature. So obviously it works. Well, it works anyway because we used to do it. Foundational Black Americans used to practice this. We used to do it. That's how we could, that's how we could have a Black Wall Street and some of those other Black communities that were so economically strong in the early 1900s and on up to the 1960s, 1970s. We could have some of those Black communities that were so strong. It's because this is what we practice. We practiced crowdfunding, SUSUs, group economics. That's how we got things done. That's how we opened businesses and maintained businesses. That's how the communities took care of each other. That's how Black folks in the communities took care of each other. Because we practice stuff like this. But again, integration was the poison that has almost wiped us out. Certainly economically, it was the poison that has almost wiped us out. It was the poison that has contaminated everything. Because it was because of integration that we stopped doing this, at least on a wide scale. Now, there are still some of us who do it. There are some of us who never stopped doing it. Dr. Claude Anderson never stopped preaching this. Him and others never stopped preaching this. So there are some that never stopped, but the majority did. Because we were contaminated and we were blinded and we were fooled by integration. And that poison is still coursing through our collective veins. Although some of us are starting to flush it out. Some of us are starting to flush that toxin of integration out of our systems. And we're realizing that we've got to go back to this. We've got to rediscover this. Because as I said in that last video, group economics didn't desert us. It didn't abandon us. It didn't stop working for us. We abandoned it. We stopped working it. That's the reason why it stopped working for us. So see, we've got to revisit this. We've got to rediscover group economics, crowdfunding, SUSUs. We've got to rediscover this, and we've got to get back to basics. We've got to get back to what works. Because what we've been doing for the last 50 or 60 years does not work. Trusting politicians, trusting the government, depending on the government. Including everybody else. Including everybody else in our business moves, and including everybody else in our politics, and including everybody else in our economics. We've got to stop that. That's what we've been doing for the last 50, 60 years, and it's not working. It's not working at all. We've got to get back to being exclusive. We've got to get back to doing what we need to do in our communities with each other, to the exclusion of all the other groups. We're so inclusive until we're giving all our money to all the other groups and not keeping any for ourselves. That's how inclusive we have become. And our inclusion is leading to our destruction. But you heard what he said. Traditionally, the arrangement, still talking about the SUSU, traditionally the arrangement is conducted in cash and without any interest charged. The organizer of the SUSU may be compensated for their efforts as a courtesy. Since a SUSU is not a written or legal contract, it relies on personal trust to discourage malfeasance. For this reason, it is more likely that the participants are members of the same community and know each other. That's the reason why the Asians only do business with the Asians. They only do business with outside sources when they just have to. And I guarantee you those outside sources are not going to be black. White folks mainly do business with white folks. They only do business with outside sources when they have to. And you can best well believe it's going to benefit them. Most Hispanics do business with Hispanics. That's the reason why you see all these Hispanic stores have popped up everywhere. These folks do business with members of their own community because we're members of the same community. We know each other. We're on code. We practice that economic code of conduct, which says we'll do business with each other and keep our dollars in our community before we branch out and do business with anybody else. We'll only do business with other people when we have to. And it's going to benefit our community. We're not going to go out and do business with somebody and it doesn't benefit our community. But black people will. Black people will go out and do business with folks and it doesn't benefit the black community at all. That's what's happened. That's all we do is do business with everybody else. Do business with all these other groups. $1.2 trillion spent every year buying stuff. And we're just giving that money out to other communities. And it's not benefiting us. So we're doing business with other people, but it's just not benefiting our community at all. Well, they don't do it business that way. If they go outside of their community to do business with somebody outside of their community, outside of their group, you can best well believe it's going to benefit their group, or they're not going to do it. They'll do without until they can get the benefit out of it. That's how they practice politics, group politics. They're not going to do politics. They're not going to vote. They're not going to support anybody politically or anything else unless it benefits their group, unless it benefits their community. If they can't get no benefit out of it, they'll sit it out. But again, for the last 50, 60 years, we've been participating in the political process out of loyalty, out of tradition, because somebody told us, well, they died for you to have the right to vote, so you need to go vote no matter what. But it's not doing us any good. It's not benefiting our community at all. Not at all. So we'll go out and we'll spend $6, $7, $8, $10,000 with this group over here or with that group over there, benefiting their community, enriching their community, and not getting any benefit whatsoever that comes back to our community. None whatsoever. And the reason why it's so hard for us to grasp, integration for one thing, and then it's been so many years since we practiced it till we have, a lot of us have grown so accustomed to the welfare system, which is simply the system of sitting around waiting for the government to come in and take care of you, and the government to come in and do this and give you a little handout here and a little handout there or whatever, until there's a whole generation coming along that knows absolutely nothing about operating like this. Group economics, crowdfunding, SUSUs, whatever. There's a whole generation coming along, that maybe a couple of generations, that know absolutely nothing about this. Integration has taught us that it's just so much easier and it's just so much better, to do business with other groups, especially the dominant society, because white ice is colder than black ice. We've been taught to not trust each other. And over the years since integration, that teaching has been emphasized and is growing, and now we've got this whole dusty class of folk, that want to sit around and because they've been on welfare for so long, and because they've been waiting for the government to take care of them or somebody else to take care of them, and they're not stepping up doing anything to provide and take care of themselves. They want to go in and they want to rob and kill and steal from other black folks in the community. So we got that class that needs to be taken care of. And see, all of this stems from the evils of integration. Now, have there always been black folks like that? Sure. Just like we've always had sellouts, we've always had bootlicks. We've always had black folks that were willing to sell out other black folks. We've always had the plantation bucks and the bed wenches on the plantation. We've always had that. But we knew how to deal with them. We knew how to deal with them ourselves inside of our own culture. We knew how to deal with them. We've always had black folk with that crab in the barrel mentality. You know what I'm saying? If I can't have it, you can't have it. If I can't get it, you can't get it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to let you outshine me, and I'm not going to let you outdo me. We've always had that. But back in the day, we dealt with that ourselves inside of our own communities. If we found a hater in the mix, that hater was shunned. That hater was shunned in the community. That hater couldn't go anywhere. That hater couldn't associate with anybody. Nobody would fool with him. Why? Because you are a known hater. And folks knew you were dangerous. So folks just didn't deal with you. They just didn't do business with you. But now hating has almost become the name of the game. And I said this in my crabs in the bucket show with Michi X. I said this, that was the biggest problem that we have. Even before white supremacy, that was the biggest problem that we have in our community. Is this piss poor mentality, this crabs in the bucket mentality, all of this envying, and all of this hateration and everything that's going on, along with the coons and the bootlicks and the black puppets of white supremacy that are willing to come out, and be the black faces of white supremacy or whatever. Along with that, this is the biggest problem that we have, and it's the reason why we can't get anything done. And since integration, it's been emphasized. And it has been allowed to fester and become a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger problem until, like I said, this hater mentality is almost accepted now. It's almost celebrated. Just like being a thought, you know what I'm saying? Being a hood rat, you know. Being a man that won't work and won't take care of your family and won't take care of your children, and being all soft and weak and effeminate and all of that. All of this stuff has now, because of integration, because we wanted to integrate with the dominant society and we wanted to be a part of that society. Now that's the type of behavior that's being pushed. That's the type of behavior that's being promoted. When back in the day, prior to 1964, black folks handled all of that in our communities among ourselves. We knew what to do with haters. We knew what to do when the envies and the jealousies start showing up and people start doing things to try to undermine other folks in the community. When these weak men started showing up that couldn't handle being a man, and they were all effeminate and all of that, we knew how to handle that within the community. So see, that's the reason why, like I said in the very first episode when I talked about this, we've got to get back to basics. We've got to get back to what we know used to work, because this has worked and it's still working for other groups. That's the reason why the dominant society, that's the reason why the Asians, that's the reason why the Jews, that's the reason why the Middle Easterners, that's the reason why the Hispanics, that's the reason why so many of these people are so far ahead of us. It's because they never stopped practicing this. Now, granted, they haven't been through what we've been through in this country. So they don't have a lot of the psychology and a lot of the mentality that we do, that was produced in us, because of slavery, because of Reconstruction, Jim Crow, everything that we've been through in this country. But the point is, we have practiced this. We have done this and been very, very successful at it. And those of us who are willing to practice it now are very successful at it. The other groups that practice it are very successful at it. When we were practicing it as foundational Black Americans, we were very successful. That's the reason why we owned all our own stuff. We had our own banks. We had our own stores, our own department stores. We had our own grocery stores. We had our own bus lines. Again, we had our own cab companies. We had our own theaters. We had our own baseball leagues. We had all our own stuff. And it was very successful. The only thing that may have been missing was, like I've said before, was that military to go along with it, that military like force to go along with it, so that we could protect and defend our assets. But we've been very successful in the past practicing group economics, very successful. Again, those foundational Black Americans that practice it now are very successful, and they have the tangible products to show it. They have the tangibles to show that it's successful. So for anybody running around talking about Dr. Claude Anderson's books and his powernomics plan and all of that is outdated and all of that kind of stuff, that's hogwash, because it works and it's working today. But it can't work if you won't put it to work. An unused plan can't be effective. You got to execute the plan in order for the plan to be effective. That's like you got a credit card. Somebody sent you a credit card. And this credit card has $1 million credit line on it, right? You sitting somewhere hungry, homeless, with nowhere to stay, and you got a credit card in your hand with a $1 million credit line on it. But it's not effective. Why? Because you haven't dialed that number that says you have to dial this number in order to activate this card. So that $1 million credit line isn't going to do you any good. It's not going to help you. You will continue to be hungry. You will continue to be homeless with all of that access to that $1 million until you dial that number and activate that credit card. Well, the same thing with group economics and group politics. We will continue to be on the economic decline. We will continue to be closer and closer and closer to being the permanent underclass. Some people say that we already are. We will continue to slide towards economic destruction and economic death. We will continue to do all of those things until we dial the number and activate what we know works. Or we can listen to these other folks that are telling us, no, you know, don't open no businesses, you know, don't support Black owned businesses, you know, don't put your money in Black owned banks, you know, don't be entrepreneurs, don't tap into that entrepreneur spirit that's been a part of you for generations and generations and generations and generations no, don't tap into that, you know, because there's just nothing that you can do to help yourself. There's just nothing that we can do to help our economic situation. There's just nothing that we can do to close this wealth gap between Black and white Americans. There's just nothing that we can do but just sit right here, don't do nothing, just sit right here and wait for the government to come and maybe give us some government jobs, or maybe give us some baby bonds, or maybe give us a program over here, or maybe give us a program over there, or maybe do something for all Americans that, you know, may or may not help us down the line, or whatever the case may be. No, we've already had that. We have the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that was supposed to be just for us, and was supposed to provide us with certain special protections under the law and all of that. But because of the way they worded some things in there, and because of some of the words they put in there, and some of the terms they put in there, these terms that Dr. Claude Anderson has warned us about: minority, people of color, diversity, you know, things of that nature. Now the Civil Rights Act of 1964 does every other minority group more good than it does us. And white women who inherit from white men, who own a half of everything that that white males own, White women are a minority. LGBT is a minority. All these different groups are minorities. So what was specifically supposed to be for us is now doing everybody else more good than us. Just like affirmative action. Affirmative action was that government jobs guarantee that Tone Talks was talking about. Affirmative action was that. But because it was made available to minorities, it does everybody else more good than us, especially white women. So we can either practice what we know works because we have history showing that it works. Then we have current history showing that those who will participate in it, it works for them. Then we have other groups outside of our own group showing that it works. If you do it, it'll work for you. So we can either do that, or we can continue to wait on the same government that has kept us enslaved in one form or the other for the last 400 plus years. It's up to us. And like I said, at this point, yes, the government, yes, the dominant society, yes, white supremacy, all of those have to take, their place and their responsibility in all of this. But now we have to take responsibility, especially those of us whose eyes have been opened, who are no longer asleep, who are no longer fooled, who are no longer blind. Now we've got to accept responsibility, and we've got to stand up and raise up and rise up and do what needs to be done. While we continue to stand on our square as far as tangibles and reparations are concerned. See, some of these folks would have you to believe that it's got to be either or. You know what I'm saying? Either you're going to do it for yourself and you're going to be self-sustaining, and you're going to pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever the case may be. Either you're going to do it that way or you're going to sit and wait on reparations and tangibles. They'd have you to believe that we've got to choose. It's got to be either or. No, we can have both. We can have both. We can build over here so that our structure is strong and ready when it's time for the reparations and the tangibles to start coming in. So we can do both. We can multitask. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do both. We don't have to give up one to have the other. But that's what I wanted to come to y'all with today. I wanted to come to y'all today with the definition of crowdfunding so people would understand exactly what crowdfunding is and how crowdfunding ties into all of this Black economic empowerment, and how if you work crowdfunding will work for you. I wanted to introduce you to the SUSU and show you how SUSU is just another form of crowdfunding, just another form of group economics, because that's all of these are. They're just different forms of group economics. They're just different forms of a group of people, whether it's a large group of people or a small group of people. But it's just a group of people pooling their resources together to get specific things done. Whether those things are buying land, buying property, opening business, supporting businesses, investing in business. I mean, you can do a SUSU or a crowdfunding and raise funds, and then just take those funds and invest them in a business that you believe in. A Black-owned business that already exists, but it needs capital, it needs money, and because you believe in this business, you believe in what this person is doing, you believe in entrepreneurship, then you can just take that money and you can invest that money in that business. And you can sit down with the business owner and you can hash out, is this is something that you're gonna have to pay back, or is this just a one-time investment where we just wanted to, to invest and we just wanted to support, or like I said, or is this something that you're gonna have to pay back, or is this something that at some point when your company gets so big, maybe we want shares in the company, or what, you can sit down with the business owner and you can hash out that kind of stuff, you know as far as whether you want it repaid back or not. But a SUSU, a crowdfunding, group economics doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and try to start your own business, but maybe you can get a bunch of people together and decide that you want to support a business. You want to help build a business. Maybe there's a filmmaker that's local, a black filmmaker that's local, and they've been putting out some good content, and you know that they could put out some great content if they had the funds. Okay, well, you can start a crowdfunding or a SUSU or whatever you want to call it, and collect up enough money and support them and help them take their films to the next level. But we have got to do this. We have got to do this on small scales. We have got to do this on medium scales. We have got to do this on larger scales. We have got to do this. Imagine if the Oprah Winfrey's and the Tyler Perry's and all of that in the black community, folks with mega money. Imagine if they came back to the community and they invested in small businesses, in entrepreneurs, in small filmmakers and all that, if they invested like that. But they're not going to do that, because they are the black faces of white supremacy. They got theirs. They're not worried about us. And they're so afraid that if they showed any concern for us, that they might lose what white supremacy has given them. So they won't do it. So we've got to do it ourselves. And while we're doing that, we've got to learn about money. We've got to learn about finances. We've got to become financially literate. We've got to understand the spending power that we have, and we've got to understand how to make that spending power work for us instead of working for all these other groups. And we've got to stop doing business outside of our own communities, outside of our own group, and it's not benefiting us. It's not benefiting our community. Now, it may be benefiting one individual person, but what does that one individual person do when that outside group no longer wants to do business with you, no longer wants to fool with you, or whatever, and you left out there all by yourself? Then you want to turn back to the black community to get that support, but you never gave anything back to the black community. We see the bootlegs doing that every day. Every time white supremacy gets tired of one of them, or has used one of them up, or they no longer have any more usefulness to white supremacy starts breaking them. And once they start breaking them, they want to try to come and run back to the black community. But now you ain't ever done nothing for the black community. So the bottom line is there's a choice here that has to be made. At this point, it's about a choice. And there's a choice here that has to be made on an individual level. Are you going to continue to practice that which does not work? And the last 50, 60 years has shown us that, one, integration does not work. Two, forgiveness does not work. Forgiveness and being all docile and all forgiving, and all that. Well, we're going to let bygones be bygones, and what you call all that kumbaya stuff and all of that. We have seen that don't work. We have seen that being loyal to the Democrats don't work. We have seen that us being a part of the political process doesn't work for us, period. We have seen that being willing to spend all of our money with these other groups to the detriment of our own community doesn't work. As a matter of fact, if you wonder why the dominant society, white folks and Asians and all these other groups don't have any respect for us, it's because of the stupid stuff we do. The stupid stuff we do. They can treat us any kind of way. We still come and give them all our money. They can disrespect us in their business establishments. We go right back. They can treat us like dirt, treat us like we're less than human. We still want to deal with them. We still need their acceptance and their approval, and we still need a little pat on the head from them. So that's the reason why they have no respect for us. They can totally ignore us, totally ignore our issues, totally ignore the issues that are impacting our communities. While our communities get deeper and deeper and deeper in poverty, we still vote for them. We still give them our vote. That's the reason why they have absolutely no respect for us. They can kill our folks and walk in houses and kill our folks while they're sitting in the living room watching TV, eating ice cream, or while they're at church trying to worship or whatever. And we'll run around talking about, oh, well, we forgive them and hugging and kissing and all of that. That's the reason why they have no respect for us. Would you respect anybody like that? In our own culture, we don't have respect for that type of weakness. Why do you expect anybody else outside of our culture to have any respect for us? And that's the kind of weakness that we perpetrate. That's the kind of weakness that we put out there. In the animal kingdom, folks that act like us, like foundational Black Americans, in the animal kingdom, you become the prey. And that's exactly what we have become. We have become the prey for everybody. Everybody preys on us. They just come in and take our stuff. At this point, they ain't even robbing us no more. At this point, we basically just giving it to them. They used to have to at least terrorize us. They used to have to at least do the Ku Klux Klan, night rides and put on the hoods and burn crosses and set houses on fire and threaten to lynch people or drag folks out of their house and kill them or whatever. They used to have to terrorize us and actually had to steal our stuff and take it. Now they no longer even have to take it. We're just giving it to them. We're just giving it to them. Here you go. Yeah, I'd rather come to Walmart and spend my $100 at Walmart than to go 10 more minutes down the road and spend it with a Black-owned business. Yeah, I'd rather spend $10,000 on this car that's going to depreciate in value the minute I get in it and drive it off the lot than to take this money and invest it in opening a business or invest it in a business that's already done got started or invested in some property or whatever. Yeah, that's what I'd rather do. So it's no longer a case of them just coming in taking our stuff. We're just giving it to them now. Yeah, you can beat down my sister in your nail salon or in your beauty salon, or your beauty supply store or whatever. Yeah, you can beat her down and call her all kind of names and call her out of her name and treat her any kind of way and all of this. Another Black woman that looks just like me, a Black woman that looks just like my mother or whatever. But don't worry about it. As long as you got a sale on weave or as long as you offering to do, you got a discount for a mani and a pedi, yeah, I'll come back to you. So see, they're no longer having to come in and rob us. They're no longer having to come in and take from us. We're giving it now. Yeah, you can kill my daddy who's just in church, trying to have service or trying to worship in his own way or whatever. You can walk up to him and just kill him for no reason. And yeah, I'll forgive you. I'll look the other way. And you wonder why they have no respect for us? You wonder why they treat us like they do? You wonder why all the laws and everything are against us? You wonder why it seems like we can't get no justice? Because they have absolutely no respect for us. Why? Because we act powerless. We're not powerless, but we act powerless. And what power we do have, we just give it to them. We just give them our power. He'll take it. I don't need it. All I need for you to do is smile at me. All I need to do is when I walk in your salon, you can call me by my name. That makes me feel important because you can call me by my name. But in the same instance, it's okay if you turn around and slap the black woman that's beside me, as long as you call me by my name and you recognize and you acknowledge me. How you treat her is between you and her, as long as you acknowledge me, until the day that you decide that you want to haul off and slap me. Then it becomes a different matter. See, it should be an issue whether you know the other woman or not, whether you like her or not. It should be an issue simply because she's a black woman just like you. So at this point, we can no longer hide from accepting responsibility. You know, we got all these black women running around talking about when the black men gonna stand up and when the black men gonna defend us and when the black men gonna raise up and they gonna do that. Well, then you had a black brother by the name of Tyrone going, putting his own self, his own life, his own freedom, and everything on the line by throwing bricks in this window of this nail salon where the owner of the salon had just beat down this black woman. And instead of these same women that complain about black men, instead of those same women having his back and never showing up at this salon again, when he went back to the salon with all the windows and everything boarded up, it was black women still sitting in there getting their nails done. And you wonder why we're not respected. You wonder why nobody pays any attention to us, why nobody takes us seriously. You wonder why all these other groups over here that are here because of us and eating off of stuff that belongs to us, they ain't earned nothing. Ain't nothing theirs. They don't have any right to anything. But we didn't just invite folks to the table to sit down and have a meal. We let them take over the table. We just let them have it. And now we talking about getting a seat at our own table. We're talking about getting a seat at a table that belongs to us, a table that we built. But we running around getting happy because we talking about we got a seat at the table. It's your table. If anybody's sitting there and you didn't put them there, you need to make them get up. But that's the reason why they have no respect for us. None whatsoever. Like I said, as long as they smile at us, as long as they say, good job, little nigga, and give us a little pat on the head, give us a couple of little crumbs, give us one or two little butter biscuits or whatever, we just run around with the biggest smile on our face like we done something. And they laughing at us the whole time. And talking about what fools we are. Like I said, there was this post where this black woman said it herself. Why would I give $25 to somebody black selling a t-shirt when I can go to Walmart? And that's the mentality of a lot of black people. A lot of foundational black Americans. That's your mentality. Why would I support a black-owned business? Why would I give a black-owned business $5, $10, $15, $20 extra when I can just go to Walmart? When I can just go to Ross's, when I can just go to Costco, when I can just go to Trader Joe's, when I can just go to Kroger, when I can just go to Food Line, when I can just go to Marshall's or Burlington Industry or whatever. It's cheaper. It's more convenient for me. It's easier. But the sad part is you don't realize that you're taking money out of your own pocket. You're taking food out of your own mouth. You're taking resources out of your own community when you do that. And as I've said before, I'll say again, I understand that until we start building up our industries, until we start building up our businesses, until we start providing a wider range of goods and services, there are going to be things that we're going to have to go outside of the Black community to get. I understand that. But your mentality, your way of thinking should be that you do that only when you have to. And you keep that Black dollar circulating in the Black community as long as you possibly can. Now, there's some folks that's going to get it, and they're going to run with it. There are some Black folks that are never going to get it. And mostly it's because they just either too lazy or too scared to take the necessary steps. It's one or the other. Either they just too lazy and they just done got too comfortable or whatever with the status quo, and they just not ready. They just not in any position or have any kind of mindset to do anything different. Then there are folks that are just too scared. They're working on that coward mentality. They just too scared. But for those who are ready to go, let's go. Let's go. The post for you to put down the name of your business or the name of any other Black-owned business that you know, the name of the business owner's name, and the city and state where you operate, that post is on my community page, and it's been on my community page for a few days now. Not one response. Not one. Not one person has put down their business or the name of any other Black-owned business that they know. That's how you start networking. You put down your business information. Somebody else puts down their business information. And then you get 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 different businesses down there. Okay, well then somebody comes to the post in your city looking for what you have to offer, and boom, you done made a business connection. That's how you start networking. But nobody has responded to the post. So I can't shout your business out on my videos if I don't have the information. So, talk is cheap at this point. There are a whole lot of people talking about, oh, yeah, we need to do this. And, oh, yeah, we need to do that. And, oh, yeah, I'm gung-ho for this. And, oh, yeah, I'm gung-ho for that. And all of that. But when the time comes to put up or shut up, they're not putting up anything. But I'm putting up. The post is there. The post is there. The platform is here. And no, maybe I'm not some big YouTuber with 30 or 40,000 or 300 or 400,000 subscribers or whatever the case may be. But we got to start somewhere. We got to start somewhere. That's how you build. You don't start a skyscraper on the 10th floor. You start a skyscraper at the bottom floor, and you build and you build and you build and you build and you build. And I've never seen a skyscraper spring up overnight. You have to build. You have to start from somewhere. But that's what I wanted to bring to you. I didn't mean to keep you this long, but it's real important because this is some stuff that everybody needs to be talking about. Right now, in the beginning of 2020, everybody needs to be talking about this. Everybody needs to be talking about group economics. Everybody needs to be talking about if we're going to operate in any kind of politics, we've got to do it as a group. We've got to do it as a block, not individual people running off doing all of these different things. That dilutes our power. Just like Dr. Claude Anderson said, when you put cream in coffee, you don't strengthen it, you weaken it. When you start doing all of that separating and you got some over here doing this and some over there doing that, it weakens the group. But when we move and we think and we operate as a group, as a block, that's where our strength is. That's the reason why we can't get no momentum with nothing. That's the reason why since the civil rights movement we have not had any momentum with anything. Why? It's because we got too many people doing too many different things. And we no longer operate as a group. But for anybody who's serious about this black economic empowerment, which is the only real black empowerment there is. Anybody that's serious about this, like I said, the post is there. And it ain't got to be your business. It could be somebody in your city or in your state that you know that's black and they own a business. Put their name, the name of their business, and the city and state on the post. And let's get this thing moving and stop all this talking and get to doing. But that's it. I'll put the link to the information that I found about crowdfunding and SUSU. I'll put that in the description box. Of course, the last video that I did on this subject will be linked in the cards up here somewhere in the video. Please like this video. Please share this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not. Please hit that bell notification if you'd like to be notified when we upload videos. The link to support the channel is there if you choose to do that. But again, these are conversations that we need to have. These are conversations that we need to be having with our family members, with our friends. We need to be talking about, well, how can we work this SUSU or this crowdfunding or group economics or whatever term you want to put on it. How can we work this in our community? Grassroots. How can we work this right here in our community? What can we do? And like I said, I've given you some solutions in this video. It's not these videos are not just about talking about the problems. These videos are also about solutions. Even if you don't have a plan to open a business, or you don't know somebody that has a plan to open a business, but you know somebody that has opened a business and you believe in what they're doing or whatever, do a crowdfunding or a SUSU or whatever. Get some folks together, y'all pitch in some money together and give that money to that business owner so that business owner can spend it in his business. And if you got any stipulations or whatever, as far as the money is concerned, then you sit down with the business owner and you hash all of that out. There are just so many things that you can do. I mean, if you want to open a homeless shelter in your neighborhood, or you want to open up some kind of place where you can, house people, the homeless, or so you can do something for the homeless or whatever. You can always use group economics, crowdfunding, a SUSU to collect up the money to do that. There are just so many ways that you can use these practices right in your own community. But the first thing that we've all got to pay attention to and take responsibility for is how we spend our money. how we spend our money, where we spend our money, when we spend our money. And we've all got to make sure that when we spend our money, we're investing in something. We're investing in something that, and you definitely want to be investing in something that's going to bring you some kind of return, even if it's not a short-term return, a long-term return. Are you investing in your community? Are you investing in the place where you live? In the place where your children live? In the place where you eat and you sleep? So that's the first thing we've got to do. We've all got to stop and think, what am I doing with my money? Are you building somebody else's house while your house is falling apart? Are you taking your money to build somebody else's mansion while your house is falling into ruin? That's the question you got to ask yourself. So I gave you a lot to think about, so think about it. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Good night.